Hi, my name's Corinne Margolis, and I've been an emergency room nurse for many years. My presentation looks at the applicability of an intervention method that focuses on certain observable behaviors that may be indicators for potential violence and aggression from patients or visitors. Violence is a common workplace hazard for nurses and other healthcare workers. Emergency room nurses have been identified as the highest risk specialty to experience violent episodes. Violence is defined as incidents in which employees are abused, assaulted, or threatened in the workplace setting. Verbal abuse is the most common form of violence toward nurses. Verbal abuse and physical violence coexist, and research indicates that verbal abuse may act as a warning sign for potential physical violence. Studies indicate that between 60 and 90% of nurses have experienced incidents of violence, and there are certain groups of the population that are predisposed to violence and aggression. Examples: men who are homeless and are heavy alcohol users. Alcohol decreases one's tolerance to challenging situations and may stimulate violent, abusive, or unpredictable behavior in patients. Patients that have been diagnosed with mental health illnesses are 2 to 3 times more likely to become violent, as they lack reasoning skills that are possessed by healthy individuals. Violence is not 100% predictable, but there are certain observable indicators of potential violence. The research findings identified 5 observable behaviors that indicate a potential for violence. The acronym STAMP is used to define these 5 components, which include staring and eye contact, tone and volume of voice, anxiety, mumbling, and pacing. The goal of this intervention is to reduce the incidence of violence in the emergency department. Implementation strategies include a policy development, education, and a pilot program. Workplace violence continues to be a global issue, and nurses make up the largest section of the healthcare workforce. Nurses experience the highest incidence of violence in healthcare, and emergency room nurses have been identified as one of the highest risk specialties. Much of this research has been focused on the phenomenon of violence as opposed to addressing solutions. A review of the literature concluded that risk assessment tools for violence are not evidence-based, but they are indicators of potential violence and aggression. For certain populations, as identified in studies, the STAMP risk assessment form is a systematic approach to assess behaviors that may predispose patients to violence and aggression. The focus in healthcare should be on strategies to reduce violence against nurses. The best way to prevent violence is to predict it. I have included some questions to facilitate a dialogue about your experiences with violence and aggression. Thank you for taking the time to participate in my presentation.